Welcome to this week's video. I'm going to be going over instant dates. What are they, how do they help, and how do you do them? Now I will break this into a few videos rather than just one really long one, and in the background you should see mostly me doing in-field while I talk about this. So let's get into it. Firstly, what is an instant date? Well, an instant date is any situation where you meet a girl and you move her from one place to another that changes the interaction from us just talking to us doing something together. Now, the examples here are pretty straightforward. Going and getting coffee together, going and eating food, playing any sort of game or a small game-related thing in that situation, going shopping. Any of those are fine, right? Now, the point being, if you're in a mall and you approach some girl near the doors and you talk to her for like 10 minutes and you guys get coffee, that's an instant date because it's something that is different from her just answering a question and bailing. You're changing locations. Also, it's going to be creating some memories with her. Now, for instant dates to work, you need to have enough attraction and enough comfort. So the girl has to feel interested in you and curious about you. She has to feel safe moving locations with you. And that means that this isn't something you would do at the very start of the interaction. It's something you definitely want to wait a bit until you're at the right point. So why should you do instant dates? Well, if you're going on a date with a girl, she's trying to make a decision about how far she's going to get involved with you. What position do you fit into her life? How can she fit into yours? So the more time you spend with someone, the more information you've got about them. Therefore, the better chance things are going to work out well for both of you. So if you meet a girl in the shopping mall, again, this example, and you go on an instant date with her, and let's say you spend half an hour with her, before you guys go on the official first date, I mean, you guys have already spent 30 to 45 minutes together. And that means the first date is probably going to move along a lot more quickly than it would if you hadn't spent that time together. So it's a really good way to optimize your dating efficiency, let's say, so you can get to the good parts. Now, beyond this, I think instant dates are pretty good because when you're talking to this girl for the first time, you don't really know much about her. So the initial interaction will show you lots of different things about who she is and how she is, and you can figure out, does she like fit into your life? Is she a girl that you want to spend a few hours and X amount of money on in terms of going on a date, or is she a girl that you'd rather just see very casually? On the flip side, she's figuring that stuff out about you too. So the more time you have on the front end, the better, because you can make better dating decisions. I would also say that instant dates are really good because they give you a pretty good perspective about what's possible for you as a guy, about girls, about dating, about social dynamics. Because really, I mean, you can go and approach a bunch of girls and just start going on dates with them. If you want, you could probably go on an instant date with a girl every day, assuming you approach, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 girls. So it might be a lot less than that. It just depends how good you are and various other factors. So the point being this, when you go on a bunch of instant dates with girls, you realize that it's actually not hard for you to go out and meet girls and then go on a date with them. Now have a quick think, what does that tell you about yourself? What does that mean in terms of your dating options? So a lot of guys only go on a few dates a month, most of them from Tinder, and I mean, although it's not bad, it's usually not very good. At least here in Asia, if you go on Tinder in most countries, it's generally pretty disappointing. So I think instant dating is great because you can see girls straight up. You can get a very good idea of who they are pretty quickly, and you're not going to be tricked by Photoshop or be catfished. So instant dates for the win. Now, you do want to look at things from her perspective. So she's like walking through a mall and thinking about whatever, shopping, whatever it is, and then suddenly, boom, you appear, right? You start saying these funny things, you compliment her, you guys are interacting, she's having a good time, she's finding you interesting, so then you suggest getting coffee. Well, if she's not waiting for her friends, there's no other factors that are going to get in the way, then she'll probably go and do it. But a lot of the time, there is a factor that gets in the way. There's a bunch of them. and we're going to go over them. So the first one is the good girl, bad girl factor. Now, girls in Asia have a lot more social pressure to not be the bad girl, and that means she's going to be cautious of who she goes on dates with and where, right? So you want to create a situation where she can look at things rather flexibly and won't think or feel badly about meeting you again. So the more time you have, obviously, the easier this is to do. Now, this largely depends on the context of the interaction and what you communicate about yourself and the situation. So what are you doing there? I mean, if you're just there approaching girls and it's really obvious based on how you're behaving, that's not great, because to her, it just says she's just a number. She's just one of these girls you're approaching. So the ideal situation is that it plays out a little bit more like a romance movie. Now, you don't have to save a puppy or anything like that, but from her perspective, she wants to be doing something normal in life and then meet some guy that she likes, and he charms her, and then they can meet up and their relationship progresses. So this isn't really any different to actually what you're doing. It's just her perspective is different. So that means when you're talking to her, you want to answer the question of what are you doing there? And it should be something like you're meeting one of your friends, or you're going shopping, or you're doing something else. Now, I would say unless you're a beginner, I mean, generally the best approach is to just integrate approaching into your life. So you're out doing stuff and you just approach around that. So you could be going to meet a friend or going to the bookstore, whatever, and you see a girl you think is cute and you approach her. Right? Nothing wrong with that. It's just integration. If you are very new, there is a lot of value in going out and just approaching a lot. But at the same time, you still don't want to communicate that to girls because you're going to make them feel bad. And you don't want to make girls feel bad. So the other questions are, why are you talking to her? How are you behaving in your interaction with her? And what did you tell her about yourself? So why are you talking to her? Well, if you're complimenting her, it'll be pretty straightforward to her. Now, you want to think not just in terms of what you're saying, but also your behavior. If you're going up and approaching her and you're being really, really, really indirect, she's going to think that you have some weird ulterior motive. Whereas if you're being too direct, she's going to have to reject you because it's not a good girl thing to randomly hook up with guys they just met on the street. So instead, you want to walk the middle line, which is you want to communicate to her why you're talking to her by throwing in some light compliments and joking, so you sub-communicate the point. And that also clears up your behavior. I mean, yes, you can try and make out with her on the street, but it's not likely to lead you to a first date a lot of the time, because although it might be fun and some girls will go with it, it generally is a very bad girl behavior. So you just want to be walking the middle line where you're showing enough interest and making things fun, but you're not like pushing it too hard to the point where she's going to feel like she's doing something bad by being involved with you. I'll expand on this a little bit more. So what have you told her about yourself? Well, your job is important, right? I mean, for Asian people, that's how they figure out where everyone sits in society. You want to tell her what your job is. Other information like what are you doing in that country, what do you generally do in your life, where you're from, all this stuff really matters. Because in her mind, you're just a random dude, and there's lots of dudes on offer. So all the stuff you communicate to her will tell her who you are and what she's buying into. So you want to make sure that you're communicating things that are memorable and relatable. Now, I've actually had some interesting situations where for a while I would approach mother-daughter sets and I would record them. So there are a few times in my early days where I approached a mother-daughter set and I'd talk to them. I'd always open the mother first, right? And I'd always then slowly get my way over to the daughter. And my typical thing was that I would ask the mother if she would mind me taking her daughter out for coffee, because I think her daughter's really cute. Now, the way this dynamic worked was that if you get the mother talking to you and the mother's like having a good time and she's keen, the daughter will go with it, because the mother's generally the higher up one in the social hierarchy there. So it worked quite well. Although I did notice that typically the mothers would ask, what job are you doing here? And if I answered something that was like not very clear, maybe a bit vague, they would usually imply their daughter's busy or their daughter's like studying a lot or something that would basically be a rejection. And of course, if I communicate that my job is something clear and recognizable as being a good job, then they would be a lot more encouraging. That's not really surprising, right? It's Asia, and I think Asian people in general can be pretty practical in this regard, as your job really does mean a big thing in terms of your life, your capacity to be a good partner, and a bunch of other things. So anyway, the point being, you should communicate clearly various things about yourself that matter. And if you're unsure what that is, then experiment, and you'll see based on your results. Now, I've got a really good way I think that you could put a lot of this into perspective, which is this. If you meet some girl and you talk to her and then you go on an instant date and all that, if she was to go and tell her friends and maybe family about a guy she met today, how could she explain it? So would she say, I met some random guy on the street and then I went and had coffee with him after 5 minutes and we're going to meet next week for X thing, Disney and chill or whatever, right? Or would it be better if it was something like, I met a guy today and his name was this, and he's from this country who is like doing this thing here. He was very friendly because he was waiting for his friend and he came to talk to me and he said I look cute, I look very friendly, and we chatted for a bit. He seems like a pretty cool guy because he does this job. So obviously the second one's better because there's more information. The girl can explain more things to her friends or family so then they can give their approval. Now sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll keep it all under wraps, but a lot of the time you'll find that when you approach Asian girls, they'll at least talk to their friends about it because meeting someone who isn't a local is not a thing that happens to a lot of them. So yeah, it's good to give enough information to get peer approval, so to speak. One other thing I think it's worth doing is to always ask and reciprocate. Now, this means that when you're asking her questions, you generally want to reciprocate with your own relevant information. Now, sometimes I do put the information at the front and then ask, and this could be like I ask her, what are you doing right now? And then before she answers, I would tell her, oh, I'm like waiting for my friend here. I came to talk to you because you're cute, so what are you doing? And the reason why I would like ask the question, make the statement, and then ask the question again is that when I ask the question the first time, her brain's already trying to answer it, and then I'm giving her a bunch of information where she then has to like deal with that, so she can't really think, should I answer this, or what is the person doing, because she's then dealing with the new information, and then I'm asking the question again, and she basically can't keep up because I'm throwing different things at her. So I think this works, one in terms of getting her to answer the question, and two in terms of kind of outmaneuvering her brain in how it can deal with information, so then she'll tell me what she's doing. Now, you don't need to be that complicated. You can just ask what she's doing, and she'll probably tell you as long as the interaction's gone well. But I do think it's good to do stuff like this, especially because there is a thing in terms of how people work, where if you do something for somebody or you give someone something, they generally feel obligated to reciprocate. So there is a bit of a difference in terms of you saying to her, hey, what are you doing here now? And then waiting for her to answer, or you telling her what you're doing and then asking her to answer. The telling her what you're doing and then asking her to answer the same thing, that would generally prompt her to answer clearly and truthfully, simply because you've already told her yours. There's some subtle thing that occurs in our brain which I think affects this. So it's quite a good thing to know. Now beyond this, a very, very important factor is this. Logistics, logistics, logistics. It doesn't really matter how attracted she is to you if the logistics suck. So logistics basically comes down to the amount of time she has and the situation. If she's waiting to meet some dude that her mum has like hooked her up with for a blind date and he's going to be there in 2 minutes, it's pretty unlikely she's going to go on an instant date with you. So I would say if she's got 5 minutes until someone turns up, regardless of who they are, that's generally not enough time for an instant date. 10 minutes is like maybe doable, but you would go to like some coffee shop nearby or something just to grab a drink really quickly and then maybe talk for 5 minutes and send her back. If you have more time, which can be the case, I mean, in Asia, you'll find lots of girls walking around shopping malls because they don't really have anything else they're doing that day, or maybe they're going to sit in a cafe and study, or whatever it is. You'll find that there are girls who have a good amount of time. And when the logistics are in your favor, great. I mean, it's a fantastic opportunity. So you always want to find out what the logistics are as quickly as possible. Now, this, of course, is asking about what is her situation that day. I mean, what is she doing? Now, typically, if she's like waiting for a friend, you can ask her, oh, like, how long have you been waiting so far? Is it a guy or a girl? What are you going to go and do with your friend, right? Now, again, as I said, reciprocate with your information about this so she feels more comfortable sharing hers. Also, what she tells you is very important. It'll tell you approximately how long you have. So then you know, should you proceed to the next step. Now, that was just logistics. The last thing I want to mention about this before we get into the how-to is compliance. So an instant date is a certain level of compliance that you're getting from her. Now, the more quickly you get compliance, the faster along the relationship will move. So you want to try and get compliance. And if you're not getting it, then you want to ask for less compliance. Compliance really just means people doing things. So if you say to her, like, come with me to get a sandwich at this place, it's like a 10-minute walk, and then she says no, and you say, oh, how about we just like get coffee here because I'm going to meet my friend in a few minutes, and the coffee thing's like 1 minute away, you're asking for less compliance. So she's going to be more likely to do that. Now, you won't always know how much compliance you're going to get when you ask for some, so you should just try, and then you'll figure it out as you go along, because you'll see at some points you will get some, at some points you won't. And it's largely based around how the girl feels about you. So as I mentioned earlier, does she feel attracted to you? Is she interested in you? Does she feel safe talking to you and engaging with you, right? There's lots of things which you can do to manage all of this, and this is why you learn game, because you learn how to structure a very good, solid, enjoyable interaction. So that's the brief coverage of compliance. The next video, I'm going to jump into the how-to. So if you would like to know more about that, watch the next video. For more information, please check out our website, pickupasia.com, or hit me up on Instagram if you have any questions you want to ask. I'll answer every message I get, so feel free to hit me up there.